Please read the disclaimer. Holy smokus, it ain't no jokes. XRP holders, breaking news, or maybe you already saw the news, I don't know. For me, it was breaking news. I woke up this morning and I saw that Trump declared that there is a ceasefire and the war is on pause. A 2-week pause for the Iran conflict, a ceasefire. We'll talk about what that means, how the markets reacted, what happened to XRP. All I ask from you is that you give me a beautiful smile to send out those good vibes. Smishity smash that like button because likes are for free and it's Wednesday. Wednesday likes are worth double, so check it out. The promotion right under the video, you can check that out. Currently, XRP is sitting at $1.38. It says XRP is up only 0.19% on the day. That is because we had this run up as we got the news, and XRP ran up to 139, then pulled back a little bit to 136, and now it's sitting at 138, which is right where the clock or the change percentage goes to zero on the GMT daily clock. So that's why it looks like we're not up that much. But if we go to the bubbles, you can see if we look here at the XRP over the last day, we're up 5.3%. If we go and we look at where we were, of course, at the bottom there, XRP is up about 8% in the last 3 days. So nice movement here from XRP. And can you see what I am seeing? We'll get to the ceasefire in just a second and the terms and everything around it and the taco, right? But do you see what I am seeing? I zoomed in a little bit so you could see a little bit better. Yes, we got two things happened. We got a crossover on the 1348 EMA on the 4-hour chart, and XRP finally broke out of that trend line that it had tried to for multiple weeks. Now, let's hope that we have the daily closed over, right? So that yesterday's day, because the run-up happened right before the new daily candle happened. And that previously, remember, it closed under. It went over, but closed under. I want to see today a continuation. I want to see how the market is going to react to this. So far, oil, of course, is tanking at 94 right now. Of course, as the news came out, oil tanked. That was, of course, we knew this was going to happen. We talked about the taco last night. One might say that this is a taco, but others might say it's not, right? Because this was all Trump's plan. He used the tactic of saying, I'm going to obliterate you in order to get the ceasefire that he wanted. But you would think that, that the Iranians should be begging for a ceasefire, but the oil and the Strait of Hormuz is their strength. Because if they did not have that, then it would have been pretty easy. But because they can hold the world by the, you know what, it's problematic. And that's why I think Trump needed that to get oil prices down, as we're seeing today, FOMC meeting minutes, and then PCE and GDP and CPI still coming out this week. So it's going to be very interesting to see all of this data that's coming out. How is that going to play out? So the 2-week ceasefire plan between Iran and the U.S. also allows Iran and Oman to charge fees on ships transiting through the Strait of Hormuz, according to CNN. Regional officials said this money would be used for reconstruction. Iran has been recently charging $2 million to enter there, and it's the Iranians said okay. And President Trump came out with this tweet, a big day for world peace. Iran wants it to happen. They've had enough. Likewise, so has everyone else. The United States of America will be helping traffic build up in the Strait. There'll be lots of positive action. Big money will be made. Iran can start a reconstruction process. We'll be loading up with supplies of all kinds and just hanging around in order to make sure everything goes well. I feel confident that it will, just like we're experiencing in the US. This could be the golden age of the Middle East. Hopefully. Now, the most important thing is that my kids go back to school, right? That's the most important thing. We'll see potentially what happens here. Now, I just want to tell you, just be careful here, because ceasefire doesn't mean peace. Ceasefire doesn't mean that the war is over. We've seen in the past where we've had ceasefires and they don't end the conflict. Ceasefire is a good step forward, but just be careful and know that there's a possibility that this flips on us again. If you're looking at the crypto market, you could say, oh, right now oil's dropping, right? And silver's up 5-6% here. Pre-market hasn't opened up, but futures and overnight trading is very, very bullish. Things are up like 5-6%, some assets there. And then the question is, why is crypto still, it had that nice pop up there, but why no 20% pop up? Why are we still at 137? And so what the answer is going to be if you've been watching this channel for a while. By the way, as always, I don't know what the market is going to do day to day. Of course, this video is for educational purposes, for entertainment purposes only, not financial advice. Always do your own due diligence before you decide to invest. Also, remember that I will never contact you on social media asking to sign up to anything or send me anything. Those are scammers, those are imposters. Please be very careful out there. So the fact is that we still have Clarity Act, that we don't have an update on that. And until we don't have an update on that, I don't think the market can get the movement that many people are hoping for. Right now, if we look, things are up, but we're not seeing the breakout that potentially we were hoping for. And again, there might be a little bit concerned here. And Ellie says here, 2 cents, Iran and US haven't agreed on anything, certainly not any core issues, nuclear, ballistic missiles, sanctions, etc. Neither side wanted to trigger Trump's deadline, so they agreed to extend it by 2 weeks. That was the only agreement made. Let's see what happens here. And it is reporting that China intervened and specifically asked Iran to accept the ceasefire deal. If that's true, many analysts will be proven right that Iran conflict was really about global conflict and competition with China. So we'll see. Maybe this falls apart. Again, there's still that possibility. I know that many people will be jumping for joy today, but I've been through this before, and we've seen ceasefires fall apart. So until there's a peace deal or something like that, and we totally see this over, this could be round one, right? And so we'll see how potentially that plays out. Now, if we look at altcoins, in specific, alts are actually starting to look really nice right now. Signals are flashing for the first time since 2020. They broke out multi-year wedge, and MACD is now approaching a bullish crossover. This is the same setup we saw in 2020, right before alts went through the roof. And then, of course, we had those big moves. The question is, do we see a potential alt season right now? That's I think we'll have to wait for Clarity Act. Right now, you can see for XRP, remember we were at strong sell. I told you strong sell. It could be that we're going to see a turnaround there. Whenever we see XRP in a strong sell, there's high probability that it flips over. And now we're seeing the short-term moving averages telling us we're in the blue. The midterms, the 30 and the 50 and 100, the 200 are still in the red. But potentially, if we continue with this momentum, we could see that flip over. Same thing here for Bitcoin. It's got the levels that we hadn't seen since March 25th. And you can see the potential of that double bottom that we talked about here for maybe Ethereum playing out as well. And that could push the momentum. Ethereum is very close to a crossover on the 1348 EMA on the daily. So again, that could be interesting, but we did have a crossover here after a long period, and then we had another sell-off. So unless we get some bad news, remember, this was coming off of bad news. We had the open of the year was good, remember? And then we had the Clarity Act, the Coinbase pulling out, and everything collapsed. Well, maybe we'll have a double whammy here where we'll have a crossover, we'll have momentum, and we'll have good news on the Clarity Act. But again, this is just speculation. This is, thinking about what could potentially happen. Raoul Paul is looking at this and saying Ethereum Bitcoin cross is getting very interesting here and is consistent with the rising business cycle, the ISM, and rising liquidity. The long-term chart is very constructive. Ethereum has broadly held its value versus Bitcoin since 2017. And that makes intuitive sense as smart contract platforms are very different than TAM, than a store of value, which can only occur and the value, the total savings, opposed to the economic activity. This will be very interesting to see what happens with the price action here today. Let me know. Do you think that we're going to see a breakout, right? Do you think we're going to see the markets continue this pump once people start waking up and seeing what happens? Asian markets are doing very good right now. Japanese market, South Korean market are pumping this morning. Does that cross over to the stock market? And do we see the crypto market come and pump with it? Or do we have to wait maybe towards the weekend where we have PCE and CPI and all that that is coming out, and potentially any updates on the Clarity Act, where now maybe Congress and can get Cook in there and to pass the Clarity Act, and maybe we can see the markets getting a little bit more excited because it has been a rough kind of few weeks for the markets, rough few months for the crypto market in general, but also stock market. As we looked at it, we were talking about how this potentially could play out earlier in the year, and that did play out. But now we saw the comeback, and so it will be very interesting to see what happens here. Again, this is the futures are already open up. This is what I was looking at, futures. So you can see futures popped overnight trading. We'll see what happens once the pre-market opens up in an hour. Will we see these levels or will we see a sell-off? Look, it's almost all of the sell-off is almost totally eaten up. Even the Nasdaq will probably open up around 24,600, somewhere around here. It's probably going to get a 2 to 3% pump here, and that's what we're going to see around this level. So very interesting that we're back to mid-March, the levels of mid-March. And that was a quick turnaround, a quick V. Trump doesn't like to let the markets drop too much, and that this was kind of interesting. Another interesting was that Trump whale, Trump insider, however you want to call him, actually longed oil with a significant amount. So he's down. I don't know. Maybe he got some bad information. Maybe someone was like, "No, we can't. You gotta lose one because there's too many suspicions." I don't know what happened there. But we'll continue to see what will happen. Will silver and gold continue to recover, and the stock market and the crypto market as oil continues to drop? Or again, will this be something, we already saw the 90s, this even remember oil dropped all the way down to 86 previously, 84, but then rallied back up. So again, things can change. I'm telling you, I've seen this story before. Suddenly someone can say, oh, they're not opening the straits because the way they said, or they're not doing 1, 2, 3, or they're not they didn't want to sign the agreement because they had to disarm from any nuclear activity, or things can flip. Okay, so just be careful from that. This is me from my experiencing telling you that things are not, until there's like a peace agreement and they agree on maybe a 10-point plan or a 5-point plan, that things are on a pause right now. It says a ceasefire, but it's just because the deadline hit and they said, okay, we agree to open the strait, but there's still a lot of things that they have not agreed upon. So we'll see if this shifts and it changes. And again, the most important thing is that my kids go back to school. um, they need social interaction with other kids. So it will be very interesting to see how the markets play out. Let me know in the comment section, what do you think? Do you think this is the end, and the markets can now pump, or do you think that this is just another one of these false flags and the market is going to sell off until we get some clarity on the Clarity Act? Let me know in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching. I hope to see you next time. And like I always say, let's make a lot of money.